Hey everyone, my name is M. Stephen Joy. I'm an artist and game creator, and my current project is a monster manual for the OSR that I'm working on. I'm about 2/3 of the way through, but right now I'm going to do a review of Outcast Silver Raiders. I highly recommend this book. It's fantastic. Let's get into it. Alright, so the Referee's Compendium is a separate book from the Player's Guide and then from the Mythic North, which I guess is the campaign setting. But I haven't read it yet, so like I say, that's just a guess. Now in the Player's Guide, I thought there were only 3 character classes, but as we'll get into it, there's actually more going on than that. So the one thing about this book that I really like is the amount of advice. He has really good advice in here. One kind of thing that I thought was funny is the author. This is the author again. I'm not going to try and say the names because this is the artist. This is the author. But the author talked about limiting the amount of gold that characters could collect for fear of them doing things like digging up dungeons instead of exploring them. I did a video where I talked about that, where I actually did that. I was playing a king character, a character that had become a king. And so he had something like 800 dwarven mercenaries, and he got them to dig up the dungeon. And it took about a year, and he just camped out and he did that. I thought that was kind of funny because I like to imagine maybe he saw that video or heard about it somehow, and that's what made him think about it, because I saw the reference in the book and I thought that was absolutely hilarious. Maybe someone else has done that too. Maybe someone did that in his campaign world. I don't know, but I like to think that, that was kind of neat. Yeah, and it frustrated the DM to no end. I mean, it really did. But this has a really nice introduction. Yeah, the first thing I should go over again is the quality of the books. The quality is amazing. It's from Exalted Funeral, Esoteric Ludology, and the quality of the books is amazing. The quality of the art again in this book is amazing. The same artist throughout the entire book. Again, I really like that. And yeah, so it starts out with a lot of really good advice for beginning DMs. And there's some advice in here, too, that I think that veteran DMs would find useful, too. Some of the stuff, I have had different experiences than him. That's not to say my experiences are better or worse than his or whatever. Just my experience is different. So one thing I get the impression of is that he really likes to keep track of everybody's gold and, and keep track of time. He's got this poker chip timekeeping system here. And he's claiming that really helps prevent players from doing things like digging up dungeons. Which, yeah, okay, possibly. I don't really know how. My character was a king. He had the resources. But, yeah, he's not referring to that, obviously, but if he were. Anyway, so I don't keep track like that so much. I'll very often ask the players how long they think has transpired, how much time they think something took, how much did it take before. I don't really keep real exact records, and the reason for that, and I think I've done videos about this before, is I really believe in a trust relationship with players and the DM. I want the players to be able to trust me. I want to be able to trust the players. So I trust the players to keep track of their own stuff, and if they want to cheat, they can cheat. I mean, that's up to them. If that's how they enjoy the game, then that's how they enjoy the game. I played with lots of cheaters over time, and they like to cheat. And I've played games where every copper piece was tracked and every gold piece was tracked and time was kept meticulously like that. And for myself, I found the game insanely boring. I'm sure he doesn't mean that. I'm sure his game isn't like that. I'm just explaining what my experience was. And I'm sure lots of people play that way, and it's, great. Maybe perhaps a different system could have been used for all of that. But what it did was it made the game really tedious. So I ended up just deciding not to play like that at all. And so I've just never, ever really played that way. I expect the players to keep track of their gold, and I keep track of time. I mostly just make notes of it on a piece of paper as I'm playing, what time I think it is, how long I think something took. But I do not do it exactly. And that's just my experience. His is different, and I think that it would work for a lot of people, especially new players. I think his system is great. The poker chip system is interesting, and he has a way of keeping track of things in 4-hour increments. Again, that's interesting. Checks and saving throws. These are sort of examples of how you would do them. Saving throws are made on a D10 again, and ability checks, I believe, are made on a 6-sided die. And yeah, so he's got a nice encounter section. Talking about encounters, of course, you have the reactions. So this is OSR. I mean, if you're familiar with the OSR, a lot of this is going to just make sense to you. I mean, there's little things that are different and stuff, but it's mostly pretty standard fare. The rewards thing is interesting. Now, he recommends that in an adventure you only have 1,500 silver pieces. That's all that the players ever can find in an adventure or whatever. Or a game session. One of the reasons, I think, is because the game world is sort of a grim, dark, harsh world, and he wants the players to feel hunger. He wants the players to feel, the pressure, those pressures of say poverty, and something I think that would be nice to bear in mind when reading this book is wealthy people have problems too. And I know when I was first starting out playing, I didn't quite understand that, and I sort of learned as time went on that, yeah, a person can have 1 million gold pieces. It doesn't change the fact there are things threatening the kingdom. There are things threatening their loved ones. There are things threatening other things that they care for, or even just threatening the world. The amount of, for example, the amount of money you have, it doesn't matter if a nuclear bomb is going to fall on your head. It just doesn't matter. There are problems. So, but I think the reason that he suggests doing that is because of the nature of the campaign world. He doesn't want wealthy people, and he says that right in there. He doesn't expect the players to become part of the ruling class. He doesn't expect them to become gentry. He doesn't think that they're gonna get strongholds and build castles and become kings and amass armies and stuff. And fair enough, that's not what this game is about. However, I gotta say, I love this book, and don't get me wrong, I'm not being negative on it. I'm just expressing what my experiences and my thoughts about it, okay? So one thing I really love about this, and I really respect his how he made these rules, is that he acknowledges that everybody has a different way of playing. And so he's included rules to allow people to play the way that they want to play, and discusses how to, incorporate things into the game that they maybe wouldn't that his campaign world doesn't have. I think that's amazing. I think that's great. So one of the things is magic spells, for example. He has the magic spells, and it's ritual magic, and this is just brilliant. I love the idea of the ritual magic. There's not a lot of spells, but they're very complicated. They're hard to find. They're hard to learn. Once you learn them, they're hard to cast, and you're making deals, and you're negotiating with very dark, evil forces. And you even you can even make sacrifice of your own blood in order to cast these spells. And he says you can use regular D&D spells, from the OSR in this, but his campaign world makes use of these spells. And so you could use those spells if you wanted, I mean, I think that's really great. But these spells, you know, you can use these instead if you'd like, if you want to capture the real flavor of the world. I think that's wonderful. See here, he does cover strongholds, so he's got a couple pages on strongholds. So in case you do want to have strongholds in the world, you can do that, because he's quite aware of that you know, lots of players are going to play in his world differently. I think that's really great that he acknowledges that and then actually made the rules for it. So creating mystery, he covers a really great way of creating mystery, which I agree with. I've done videos on it. You create locations, and then you let the players and the locations and the NPCs create situations. I love that. Also, he talks about another thing that I really love, and that is that you don't need to clear up mysteries. You don't need to answer mysteries. And that's something that's always driven me crazy about movies and in fiction and stuff like that, is the way that they insist on giving an explanation for things. And honestly, that destroys a movie for me. I like not knowing. I like when things end without an explanation. There's too few movies that do that, and there's too many too many DMs that feel sort of obliged. Also talks about not filling in the details and explaining things to players, but rather letting them explore and find things out naturally. It's just full of great advice. I mean, that you just can't go wrong with that. Even veteran players, if you're not used to that, that's awesome. There's one other thing in here that really stood out to me, and was about the NPCs. I'm not going to be able to find it, so instead, I'll just go here. So he's got a section where he talks about... actually, I should find it, because he acknowledges... Yeah, animal art ships. So this is from 10-Foot Polemic. .blogspot.com. James Young. He did this, so he incorporated it and he acknowledged. And I guess this guy has a lot more animals. But his suggestion for NPCs is really great. I like it. I guess James Young, what he would say is that you just roll and then you associate an NPC with an animal and you kind of give it, you know, the attributes of that animal, or sort of the ideas that animal triggers for you. So, you know, let's say you've got an innkeeper and you roll a pig. So you've got, you know, pig, you can think, well, large, maybe balding. He's maybe unkempt, and he's a loud eater. He tends to snort when he laughs. So you write pig beside the guy's name, and instantly, when you come back to it, maybe a year or two later, you have an idea of what this guy's like. Now, as you know, I like to use the 5-factor model: the ocean, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And I like to rate those, and then I like to use the dark triad for bad guys. But I think even doing that, I think adding an animal to it, you know, would add a total splash of color. So I love this idea. It's just one of the ideas I'm going to lift from this book. I'm going to lift a few tables and everything else, because it's got a lot of good stuff in it. It really does. Advice on running the world. Just fantastic art. The spells are great. I really, really like the magic, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work like regular D&D magic or OSR magic, although you could put that in if you want. And then, like I say, the rest of the book here after the magic, well, you've got randomly creating artifacts and magic items a little bit, and then you have fantasy races. Now his campaign world doesn't have fantasy races in it. Playable fantasy races. And my new campaign world I'm making actually doesn't either. Not playable ones. It's going to be human-centric for the players as well. But he included the races in case players want to play them. And to acknowledge that is great. A lot of rules would just say, no, that's not how this campaign world is. We're leaving them out. He didn't. He included them. So if you want to play half-elves and halflings and whatever, you can go ahead and do that. And then he went ahead and included different classes, which, again, is awesome. So the main book, the player's guide only has the 3 classes, right? And with the 3 classes, some players might feel limited. Some DMs might not like that. Maybe a player wants to play something else. Well, they would be able to, because they are included. There are a bunch of other classes included in the book. But that's not what he recommends. He recommends if you're going to use these, you could use them as NPCs. And then obviously you can incorporate them into your game if you want. But he suggests that you just stick to the 3 classes for the heroes, because honestly, you don't need more than that. And he's right. And, but if you want them, here they are. So, I think that that's great. One of the interesting things he talks about, and I'm not really sure how I feel about this, because he talks about not having plots. And now I agree, setting up situations, letting the players explore the world, that's a fantastic idea. Setting up NPCs in the world and just letting things happen. Listening to the players, what they're worried about, what they're fretting about, sort of as a way to figure out, little things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of, and just allow them to happen in the world, the paranoias of the players. That's all great stuff. And I understand not wanting to, especially for new players, not wanting to have plots, so that the players never feel railroaded. However, I love plots, and I think plots are great, and I think they do have a place in the game, in my experience. Not criticizing him. He can DM the way he does, criticizing the book or anything. Just saying my experience is that plots are wonderful. However, this is my understanding of how to use plots. You have to be ready for players to walk away. You might have a plot set up. It might not work out the way you want, so you have to let things move on. You have to be able to evolve it very quickly. I'll give you an example. I rolled up that character, Slyndra, for my campaign. I had an idea of how she'd get incorporated into the game, where the players would discover her. I had a whole image in my mind of the situation, what would happen. None of it happened. It completely got cocked up. And she almost died, but didn't die. Players still haven't run into her. And I have to, that's the end of that plot. I mean, that's that. It's just done. I had an idea. It didn't work. And so that's how I like to incorporate plots. They're there. If the players stumble into them, and if the players care, then they can start pursuing that avenue. If they don't, they don't. I mean, the game, it's all about them. It's not about me. It's not about my world. It's not about my ideas of what the world should be like. It really isn't. I'm there to facilitate the game, have fun creating for them so that they can have fun. I mean, that's the purpose of it. And in that way, plots for me make a lot of sense, because it gives me a chance before the game to sort of hypothesize and come up with ideas that might happen. And, again, Dungeon World, I've talked about Dungeon World before, and the way that it talks about having dangers. So you have a campaign front, you have your danger type, and you list out your grim portents and pending dooms, what's going to happen if they don't take it seriously. Because if they don't take it seriously, if they fail, then these are the consequences. And, that's a plot. It's a very broad, open plot, but it's a plot, and I love it. I mean, I think this is one of the best ways to structure a campaign that there is. And so that's a plot. So he recommends not having plots. I think that's great. And I haven't gotten into the world yet. So it could be when I read this, it'll make a lot more sense. Kind of how only having 3 character classes didn't make sense. A couple other things in the player book didn't quite make sense until I read here. And then, that's why. That's why he's doing it that way. Suddenly made sense, and he's thought it all out. And it's great. And so in this book, and I'm really looking forward to reading this. This one's the big one. Of course, it's got all the details of the campaign world and stuff. Yeah. But that's just my experience, you know, and his is obviously different, and I would love to. I really want to play this game. It looks incredibly fun. Highly recommend this. Again, it's from Exalted Funeral, Esoteric Ludology. Really well made, beautiful artwork. Isaac Van. Oh, see, I shouldn't try and say it. That's name that there, and this, you know, Kim Diaz Home, I would expect is the name. Did the artwork. And the art's this sort of grim, I mean, it's the black and red. It's very gritty and dark, and you know, and that's the world. That's the world that this is the campaign world he's going for. So it makes sense. It makes sense to restrict gold and all that, you know, the way that he does. Anyway, that's the video. Thanks for watching. I hope you'll leave a like, and I hope you'll remember to subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. And yeah, thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.